Once known as Happy Arabia, Yemen is now reduced to rubble and ruins as a result of Saudi Arabia's indiscriminate bombing of the country, which has been raging on unabated since March 2015. The kingdom has ever since imposed a blockade on its southern neighbor, leaving some 20 million people facing a humanitarian crisis. The blockade, which has nearly exhausted the country's dwindling supplies of fuel and food, has been causing Yemenis to die of starvation. The port city of Hudaydah, home to about 600,000 people, is the only major port controlled by Yemen's Houthi forces. The city is responsible for 70% of imports into the war-ravaged country. But a recent offensive by Saudi Arabia and its allied UAE forces has fueled concerns about a looming humanitarian catastrophe. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council has convened to discuss a proposal that calls for an immediate end to the fighting in Yemen's Hudaydah. But the 15-member body failed to approve the measure after the US and the UK opposed to its text.
But when it comes to countries which are their targets or targets of their proxy armies, such as the Saudi coalition, they show no concern whatsoever for the people's welfare or their human rights. It's a kind of Western European white selective empathy, and it's disgraceful.
Instead, the Security Council contented itself with a statement which urged all sides to uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law during clashes in Hudaydah. The impasse at the UN effectively gives the Saudi and Emirati forces the green light to launch a direct attack on the port city, which serves as a lifeline for millions of Yemenis. Shortly after the rejection of Sweden's proposal, the Saudi-led forces intensified their operation in Hudaydah, claiming that they took control of the city's airport. What's noteworthy is that Washington and London, the two Saudi allies, have been benefiting greatly from the war in Yemen through their arms deals with Riyadh. France is another Western country which backs Saudi Arabia in its deadly aggression against Yemen by providing weapons to both Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Now, a French newspaper has reported that the European country's special forces are present on the ground in Yemen, supporting the Saudi offensive on Hudaydah. Yemen's Ansarullah forces say French and British warships are also on standby on the war-torn country's western coast. But the U.S. has refrained from direct involvement in the onslaught on Hudaydah, rejecting a military support request from the UAE.
The U.S. has been handling all the intelligence, the reconnaissance. It has been supplying equipment. It has been supplying special experts. It has been deeply involved while trying to remain aloof and doing as it did before in Libya, quote, leading from behind.
Meanwhile, the UN Special Envoy to Yemen is in Sana'a to broker a ceasefire deal. Martin Griffiths is expected to propose to Ansarullah leaders that they cede control of the port city to a UN-supervised committee. With an intensification of fighting in Hudaydah, the UN's World Food Programme and the World Health Organization have called for the port's uninterrupted functioning. But such calls have had the least impact on Saudi Arabia, whose aggression is benefiting the veto-holding Western powers at the United Nations.